Çocuklar yalnızca bildikleri şeyleri arzular. Peki acaba ne demek istiyor? Bırakalım da kendisi anlatsın. Kidzanya Global Eğitim Direktörü Doktor Ger Graus'u sahneye davet ediyorum. Alkışlarınızla Mr. Graus, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, that was a long walk. I'm quite tired now. I'm so sorry I don't speak your language. First and foremost, an apology. I cannot possibly tell you how proud I am to be here today, and I mean that absolutely genuinely. From a Dutch coal miner's grandson who I am to the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul is some journey in my life, and I'm very proud of it. I stand on the top of a hill. I stand on the top of my hill. And I see my grandfather over there, the coal miner, and I see my son, 21 years old, over there, who is in his last year at Oxford University. Social mobility personified, and the moral high ground is a beautiful vantage point for me. Whatever the question, education is always the answer, Archbishop Desmond Tutu told me on his 86th birthday after a shared portion of vanilla ice cream in Cape Town, and that's a different story altogether. I want to talk to you today for a little bit about children, and my thinking about children, their inspirations, their aspirations, the educational confusion that exists, and we find ourselves in globally, and what to do about it. Disruption. Can we create a tomorrow that is slightly better than today? Those children, by the way, are your future customers and your future employees. And those children demand in the 21st century that we change our behavior to accommodate their growing up. It is at our peril that if we do not change our behavior, we will do greater damage than we can possibly think now. We need to change our thinking away from return on investment. We need to change our thinking towards return on involvement. Let's see whether this works.
I'm one of the few female pilots. I've been to America, Spain, and I love every minute of it. Air traffic control has cleared us for takeoff. Okay, let's go. People, property, and postcodes. I call it the 3 Ps. Hello, Mrs. Smith. How can I help you?
I have won lots of awards. When I was a school child, I was directing my school play. It's not a job, it's a calling.
A Romeo. A Romeo. They see surgery as an art form. It's vital to keep a cool head. Scalpel? I'm a bit of a petrol head. I could have been a doctor, but I prefer cars. What's not to love?
And we're live in 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, and welcome to the 9 o'clock news.
Kidzania London, a city made just for kids aged 4 to 14.
That was a British Airways advert. Return on investment. It was paid for in 2014, 2015, and it came out of their marketing budget, and it's very pretty, and it's quite cute. But I wonder how relevant it is today. What I do know from a Kidzania point of view, and I'm the Global Education Director wherever I travel in the world, across all 26 Kidzanias in 20 countries, is I now know that the better we are and the better we behave, the more successful we will be in all sorts of ways. The greatest challenge we face every day is to do the right thing for every child. It is the lottery of inequality from birth that is so hard to apply fairness to, especially in education systems that appear obsessed with mass approaches where there is little room for knowing the individual and what makes them tick. We test our children to death, and we do not give them the skills that we require them to have when they become our future employees. Let me tell you a story about Wythenshawe, a place of significant socio-economic disadvantage in the north of England, next to Manchester Airport. I was the education director there in early 2000, and I often asked children what jobs they could do at the airport. The answers I got was what they could see: baggage handler, passport control, driving buses, security, only 1/3 of the airport's job total. When I pointed out that you can fly aeroplanes too, the answer I got was people from Wythenshawe don't fly planes. From 6-year-olds, the aspirational ceiling firmly in place, put there by us. And for Wythenshawe, read Amsterdam, London, Moscow, New York, or indeed Istanbul. What are we educating our children to, and who takes part in their education? If we are the recipients of them as customers, or indeed as our employees, we need to engage more. Children can only aspire to what they know exists. It is our collective duty to twitch curtains, to open windows and doors, and widen horizons to a better possible future. I like that drawing. And where we change things is probably outside of school. It is in a world where not every classroom has 4 walls. You were talking about e-commerce earlier. Those children at the age of 5 or 6, in many ways, already occupy that world, and they are probably ahead of us already. Certainly, my 13-year-old is way ahead of me. Yeah? Should we not collectively draw up a list of experiences out with school that we believe our children should be entitled to at, say, age 7, or age 11, or 14, or 16? Museums, galleries, restaurants, e-commerce, ballet, sports, concerts, being part of a team. All those things matter on the skills front. To all involved, the value of the connection between being taught in school and experiences out there will soon become very, very clear. I ask children all over the world, why do you go to school? And the answer in 99% of the cases is, because I have to. It is the wrong answer. We need to help them change that answer. Otherwise, we will have employees who cannot cope with the world ahead of them. If you have a strong purpose in life, you don't have to be pushed. Your passion will drive you there. We need to create passionate young people. Let us add to the wilding the tame agenda to influence positively a sense of adventure in a risk-averse world. We tell our children all the time, don't do this, you can't do that, be safe. We need to step back and let them fall over, let them learn how to get up again, dust themselves off, and move on. We live in a world that is strangely contradictory. On the one hand, ever speedier global access to knowledge, news, events, and more, with an increasing need to be able to research, analyze, and judge. On the other hand, ever narrowing education curricula and testing, ever greater emphasis on overprotection in the name of health and safety. No wonder our children find themselves at times confused. How on earth will they acquire the skills to make informed decisions, take calculated risks, learn from their mistakes? Should we not move towards a more free-range learning approach? Should we not include risk? Without elements of calculated risk, self-confidence is absent, and surely we will be wondering in years to come where our supply of entrepreneurs will come from. It has dried up. Entrepreneurs are risk takers by definition. We need to allow calculated risk to be taken in our schools and in our system. Henry Ford said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. Educationally, we seem to believe our own hype, that we are turning our so-called success stories into fake news. We test and publish our findings in league tables. We have come to believe that, to coin a phrase, weighing the pig makes it fatter. We have grown to value that which we can measure instead of measuring what we value. Our education world is Kafkaesque. What is it we're trying to achieve? How well do we actually know our children beyond, of course, their predicted grades? Let me tell you something a little bit about the research we've done globally with Kidzania. Let me tell you about 500,000 4 to 14-year-olds whose first choices we analyzed at Kidzanias across the world. So we looked at what is the first activity 500,000 children from across the spectrum have chosen. Let me tell you that in all cases, the stereotypes were set preschool. At the age of 4, from pilot to cabin crew and from hairdresser to courier. If you take the aeroplane in any Kidzania, there's a cabin crew activity and a pilot activity. Pilot activity, 90% boys, 10% girls. Cabin crew activity, 95% girls, 5% boys. At the age of 4. They are your future customers. If you do not know your future customers, you are going to have a problem. If you do not know your future employees, you are going to have an even bigger problem. Let me tell you that there is very little change between the age of 4 and 14. Let me tell you that the STEM agenda is failing. Because whilst girls are outperforming boys in tests, they are still not choosing a STEM career. So post-test, they fall back into the conventional. Let me tell you that globally, almost all girls choose activities below the age range. Almost all boys choose activities above the age range. Where does it come from? I was in a park in Sheffield 2 summers ago with my daughter. There's a climbing frame for toddlers, for little children. And every time a little girl, maybe she was 2, maybe she was 18 months, walked up to the climbing frame, all the adults went, "Careful, careful, don't hurt yourself." Every time the little boy walked up to the climbing frame, all the adults went, go on, what's taking you so long, get to the top." If that's happening at 18 months, what chance at 16 years? There is evidence from our research that children can only aspire to what they know exists, whether they're black or white, rich or poor, urban or rural, boys or girls, young or old. And now let me ask you, when we know this, why do we wait for 10 years to engage with those children in schools about what their future might look like? We need to engage at a much earlier age and provide early opportunity. Our education system is based on the requirements of the past. Every economic age has its core asset, and in our time, this is knowledge, skills, and character qualities. Every year, the world of work tells the world of education that what is being produced does not meet the necessary requirements in terms of skills and competencies. Our schooling does not cater for the requirements of today, let alone tomorrow. We need to learn that in the 21st century, every child is everybody's responsibility, and we are all teachers. We need to introduce into education and schooling early opportunities to be aware of the world around us and the futures it may hold. That is called futures awareness. This is a sales network conference. How many 6-year-olds know what sales are? How can they become excited about working for you if they are not familiar with what you do? We need to communicate ourselves to the world better. Experience is everything. For our children to connect with the purpose of schooling and education, we need to provide knowledge and understanding, of course. But we need to ask how. And we need to remind ourselves that we have a role to play in this not all classrooms have 4 walls scenario. We are the facilitators enabling children to join the dots and recognize that experiences are the appliance of science, the theory into practice, the why answers, and often the awe and wonder. We need to empower children to make sense of the world as agents of their own change. We need to support them in finding their roadmaps. Our children will be better future employees and better customers if we change how we see them. I showed you the British Airways advert earlier. I will show you one that was made very recently that is still in draft form and that perhaps shows how the thinking in a company has changed because the engagement with us and with children.
I was the only girl. We have a partnership with Kidzania. Myself and others in the airline do so much to try and make young children, young girls, anyone from different backgrounds realise that this isn't, a pipe dream, this is actually something that they can do. And it just makes them, have a vision of what they could potentially be.
A different approach, a return on involvement approach. I would put it to you that this approach means more and will last longer because the win-win that's created works on all sides. We need to become our children's allies of empowerment. We need to make experience-based learning and partnership our modus operandi. We need to get to know our children better. Purpose needs to be our watchword, high standards and a sense of achievement, our aim, and our children's well-being and preparedness for tomorrow, our promise. We are all teachers. The businesswoman, the bricklayer, the beekeeper, the baseball player, and Mr. Burskens. Mr. Burskens was my teacher, and it is because of him that I stand here today. If you get involved in this, at some point, there will be people standing up because of you, your future employees and your customers. I also stand here because of my grandfather, of course. Perhaps in future we should not just ask children what they want to be, but who they would like to be like. I would like to end by quoting the United Nations OECD Education 2030 strategy, The Future We Want. We want competencies to shape the future. It is about acting rather than to be acted upon, shaping rather than to be shaped, and choosing rather than to accept choices decided by others. I would love to have a further dialogue with you about whether we can do something together so that you might get to know your future customers and your employees better, and from an education point of view, I could be much happier resting at the end of every day knowing that I've done a little bit more to make the world a little better place. I thank you so much for inviting me today, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of it. Thank you very much.